All right, I guess good evening to everyone that's joined the live stream. So the next 3 hours here between 5 and 8 p.m., we'll be looking at the storm basically along the I-95 corridor from the state of Virginia up through the state of Connecticut. And notice I haven't said Massachusetts or Maine here. I think the majority of heavy snow coming to that area will be later this evening, maybe overnight for you guys. But I do want to kind of begin in places that are experiencing, I guess, the most difficult travel at the moment. And basically, anybody along Northern Virginia, near DC, north and eastward through Delaware, into eastern parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Long Island, that area, you guys are experiencing the brunt of the storm currently. And one thing I want to kind of do as we move forward in time here is look at the intensity of the snowfall on the radar. And we have ways of doing that. So we have that to kind of look forward to here in a moment. But I also want to kind of track what's happening traffic wise in these different states and look at some of these traffic cameras here online. And this will give us a good idea as to how intense the snowfall is in these particular areas. Now, what I've got pulled up on the screen here is the current radar um, across the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So let's kind of zoom in here to the state of Virginia, just to begin here. And we can see around the Lynchburg area, there might be some snowfall coming down in that area. But you'll also notice the temperatures are above freezing. And for a lot of you guys, you've gotten good rain, right? Probably over half an inch of rain overnight in this area. And some locations, of course, more. Now, I am noticing that temperatures are marginal around the Appomattox area. So I see temperatures around 33, 34 degrees for you guys. Um, Again, it would have to be heavier than what we're seeing on the radar currently to really begin sticking on, let's say, the grassy surfaces and then perhaps bridges and overpasses. I do believe that this is going to probably break up even more so in the next hour or two from Lynchburg to, let's say, maybe Powhatan, that area in central Virginia. And even over Charlottesville, I think you could see a changeover. You probably have seen a changeover to snowfall there. But again, temperatures are 35 to 37 degrees currently. So it looks like a lot of this is breaking up probably over the next several hours. You'll probably still see a few bands of snowfall going into late this evening. So I would say anywhere between 8 and 9 p.m., you might see a band rebuild from the north and the east and kind of slide back into that area of Charlottesville to maybe Appomattox, that area, perhaps downward to, let's say, like South Boston, that area. Um, but I think points to the east, like Richmond, and we can kind of see here along the eastern shore, let's say Interstate 64 east of Richmond, temperatures are falling into the middle 30s and in some cases lower 30s. I see 33 degrees throughout here around King William in Eastern Virginia. And so, what's probably happening here is that we're getting top down cooling in the atmosphere, and we're seeing that column of air begin to cool down to the surface. And the reason that's happening here in and around Richmond is that the precipitation is so heavy. And we're starting to see that cooling effect here from the top of the atmosphere down to the surface. This is also true as you get out towards, let's say, like it's a good place to really take a look here. Some of these places I can't pronounce, to be honest, but let's see out towards Ocean City here, um, Delmar, that area here. So that's part of Virginia, I believe, still. Actually, no, that's probably part of Maryland at this point. Yeah, it's probably part of Maryland at this point. And then, of course, as you go north of that, you get into Delaware. So around the Millsboro area to Seaford. I was looking at some of the traffic cams earlier in this area, and they were receiving very heavy snowfall even 3 hours ago. So across Delaware in particular, I think pretty much throughout the whole state of Delaware, I think you guys are going to get a lot of heavy snowfall between now and midnight. Now, it looks like places like BC, so if we were to kind of go back forward here to, or northward here and into Manassas, Virginia, up to Washington, BC, we have temperatures now falling into the 32 to 33 degrees range. And that's definitely cold enough at the surface now for the snow to start sticking. And this is very heavy snowfall moving into the region currently. Perhaps even around Sterling and Reston. Looks like a very heavy band here. We'll have to take a look at the high resolution radar here in a moment to see what's actually falling here in this area. But again, if you were to go back towards the western part of the state of Virginia along Interstate 81, there is some snowfall around Lexington and Stanton. And you guys have been colder this afternoon in general, so there has been some accumulation there for you guys. And further back over West Virginia here, you can see where we're having some upslope snowfall. And snow showers will probably continue overnight in the state of West Virginia. So, yeah, we've talked a little bit about Virginia, part of Eastern Shore here into Maryland, the Delmarva Peninsula, that area. Dover is another area that's receiving very heavy snowfall at the moment. There's going to be a big winter in this, probably well over a foot of snowfall for you guys. New Jersey, they're currently getting moderate to heavy snow. And there's currently a very heavy band of snow moving over New Jersey. And this band is actually hitting towards New York City. It'll probably be in there in the next hour or two. So we could see snowfall rates approaching 2 inches an hour at some point here in New York City and also Newark, New Jersey. Now, as we get into eastern Pennsylvania here, Philadelphia, um, let's say northward into Norristown, and then also north and westward into Reading, Allentown. This whole area here has been receiving moderate to now probably heavy snowfall. So if you're driving from I-81 north from, let's say, the state of Maryland into the state of Pennsylvania, that's going to probably get more dangerous here in the next hour to do that. Also, Interstate 78 here between Harrisburg and Allentown. I believe that's going to probably be very difficult travel. They're kind of ground zero for a lot of this heavy snowfall as well. Um, Now, further northward here, just in general, let's say as we go into Long Island, there's going to be a big winter in this storm. We could see 12 to 18 inches of snowfall for much of Long Island. There will be some locations here that do pick up 2 feet of snow. It's just kind of hard to tell where the heaviest bands are going to set up with the system. But yeah, north of New York City, even we have snowfall overspreading the area towards White Plains. Uh, Bridgeport, Connecticut, it looks like you guys are starting to get in on the snowfall as well. But this whole area here, let's say from southern New York to Connecticut into Rhode Island. Rhode Island, I don't have any cameras for you guys to kind of show you the snowfall moving in between now and 8 o'clock. Um, but again, I think the heaviest snowfall is going to be after 8 and 9 o'clock tonight. Um, it's going to more so affect, let's say, Long Island to New York City, Hartford, basically between now and that 8 o'clock period while I'm streaming. So I don't have any cameras for you guys or Boston, but I do have cameras as far north as Albany, New York. You might ask why. Um, a lot of this precipitation is going to actually propagate north and west with time, and it could actually fill back into the Hudson Valley during this evening. I just kind of want to have that in place in case you guys want to see that if that were to happen. But yeah, this kind of gives us an overview of the snowfall currently. It's very heavy snowfall in general over the region. And it's so heavy, in fact, that we're starting to see that rain change to snow in a lot of areas that have seen heavy rainfall, not only last night, but this morning. So, yeah, we're seeing quite the change here from the state of Virginia, especially in northern parts of the state, through the state of Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, especially Delaware. Delaware's been um, been slammed probably for the last few hours here. And again, we have this very heavy band now moving into New Jersey, and eventually Long Island here in the next hour. So again, this is as of 5:14 p.m. this evening. So it looks like around 6 p.m. for New York City, that heavy band's going to be approaching you guys. And we're going to see those snowfall rates really pick up. So thankfully, this is not a Monday evening drive for you guys. This would be absolutely terrible. Because again, this would be right around rush hour, that time frame, uh, where we're receiving this very heavy snowfall. Um, but yeah, I think what we should do now, the next thing here is kind of take a look at the model itself. So let's exit out of this just for a moment. And yeah, let's kind of take a look at what the model's showing here the next few hours. So to kind of begin here, this is showing as of around, I guess, 3 p.m. this afternoon. This is what was forecast. Can you see that rain kind of changing to snowfall in the state of Virginia, even over places like Richmond, as we get in towards around 6 p.m.? That means that DC down to the eastern shore of Virginia should be receiving heavy snowfall around 6 p.m. this evening. Now, what's going to really struggle with is where the heaviest band of snowfall is going to set up here, even in the high resolution model. But around this time, again, we should have very heavy snowfall moving into places like Long Island. Um, Now, if we continue pushing this forward with time, you can see these consecutive bands moving on shore. Uh, you see the heaviest snowfall predicted by this particular model offshore instead of onshore here in places like New York. But I do believe that this low pressure system is probably going to track a little bit closer to shore than what's being shown here. But we can even see as we get towards, again, this is around midnight here. We have heavy snowfall likely over eastern Pennsylvania, much of eastern Maryland, around DC still at this time. Delaware is still receiving very heavy snowfall, southern New Jersey up to Long Island. All of you guys are receiving probably 1 to 2 inches an hour at this point. Um, it's probably hard to pick up on here where the heaviest bands are all going to be, but even over Hartford, Connecticut here, Providence, Rhode Island, again, probably picking up this 1 to 2 inches an hour snowfall rates. And even around this time, we probably have a band of snowfall over Albany, New York, extending eastward into Boston, Massachusetts. Lighter snow by comparison, but as we get into maybe around 2 to 3 a.m. In the morning here, we'll likely have heavier snowfall finally reach the Albany area. Also, Boston. It looks like you guys will finally be getting in on the heavy snowfall, probably around 1 inch an hour rates at that point. Now, this whole time, right, Delaware has been receiving heavy snowfall. So between this afternoon, right, probably around 1 or 2 p.m., heavy snowfall in Dover. And that's continuing now into 2, 3, maybe even 4 a.m. at this point in places like Dover, Delaware. Southern New Jersey's been receiving heavy snowfall pretty much since this afternoon. So you can imagine that the snowfall is really picking up here. We're probably having on the ground somewhere between 10 and 12 inches of snowfall here, east of I-95 here. Um, Now, this continues in places like Delaware, even into the early to middle morning hours here of Monday. New Jersey, New York State, you guys are still getting heavy snowfall as we get into about 7 a.m., 8 a.m. time frame tomorrow morning. And then this is as far as this model goes out, but you can see that the heaviest snowfall is likely over Massachusetts at this time. And we can see that this model is trying to pick up on some very heavy snowfall bands over places like Boston, maybe southward towards Nantucket as we get into middle Monday morning. So again, that 8, 9, 10 o'clock time frame for you guys likely. The Capital District here in New York State, you're probably picking up moderate snowfall from this event for several hours. Again, a 6 to 12 hour snowfall for you guys as well. But there's going to be a big cutoff here. We're going to probably see maybe 5 to 6 inches around the Albany area. You travel south on I-87, get down to New York City, all of a sudden you're getting into the 12 to 14 inch snowfall range. And again, some places there along Long Island will probably pick up anywhere between 18 inches and 24 inches of snow. So this will be a big deal the further south you get and the closer to the coast you get in New York State and all around the coast of New England. So, guys, the next thing I want to do here, we kind of talked about what's happening currently on the radar as of around the 5 p.m. time frame. We also took a look at the national radar here. I want to take a look at the high resolution radar next. So we'll take a look at that now and kind of interact with this particular image here. Now you can see over central Virginia, we have these bands, generally light bands, right, moving into central Virginia here. This is all likely snowfall at this point, or at least rain mixed with snow. But the temperatures here again are marginal across the state. What's interesting is as you get out here towards the eastern shore, the precipitation amounts really pick up here. So, because of that, that's cooling the atmosphere from the top down. So, places east of Richmond here, where we have the heaviest bands set up here, are likely seeing temperatures around the 32 to 34 degrees at the surface. And that, of course, is cold enough when you get heavy snowfall for it to start to accumulate. And as we go southward of that, even into the Petersburg area, again, warmer air typically down here to the southern end of the storm. But again, precipitation amounts are high enough, those rates are high enough to drop those temperatures at the surface. And what we're seeing here, according to the forecast models, are snowfall amounts down to Norfolk, even Virginia Beach. You guys could see at least 1 to 3 inches of snowfall from this storm, with all the cold air being pulled down now out of Canada by this system. Now, as we go into northern Virginia here, again, we can see the heaviest band now over, let's say, I guess Sterling, Virginia here, just to the west of Washington, D.C. We're seeing this band of yellow set up for you guys. So we're probably seeing those 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates even for this part of Virginia here. And this will begin to slide off to the east with time. So I'd imagine Washington, D.C., as we move throughout the evening, that heavy band will begin to push off to the east. And this continues, right? Not just for the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia area, but also over Annapolis, Maryland. We see another heavy band of snowfall here. And even up into Baltimore. Now, this particular radar is probably not picking up on the heavy snowfall so well over Baltimore. So let's try out one of these other radars here locally. And yeah, this is picking up on that heavy snowfall over Dover, Delaware, southward into, let's say, the Cape area of Delaware. So you can see all these heavy bands, right, over the Northeast and the Mid Atlantic. And that, of course, is delivering those 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates that we're seeing first over the mid Atlantic, right? But then eventually into the Northeast. Now, over Philadelphia, much the same. Again, a lot of the heaviest snowfall is just to the east. And we're seeing the heaviest snowfall over places like Toms River and southern New Jersey. But this snowfall, of course, continues northward into places like Trenton, New Jersey, and also into Edison. And once again, we have this heavy band that's moving into New York City within the next 30 minutes to an hour now. So we're approaching 5:30. We were saying around 6 p.m. we'll see the snowfall move into New York City. And then it might hang out in this area, right? Between New York City and Yonkers, maybe up to Bridgeport there in Connecticut. But I think we'll start to see some very heavy snowfall rates around 6 p.m. in New York City. And right now, I think we're seeing mainly a moderate to almost heavy snowfall right over Long Island. It looks like, looking at the local radar here, that snowfall rates are really picking up here. So this whole area here is receiving a moderate to heavy band, and it looks like it's really beginning to fill in now. So it might be from 5:30 on for you guys where you see that heavy snowfall move into the area. Now, what about further north here? Let's say as we get into Hartford down to Bridgeport, that area. It looks like mainly lighter snow is moving in for you guys currently, and it might be a couple of hours before it really begins in Connecticut. And then as we get up to the Capital District near Albany, you guys were getting light snow pretty much all throughout the afternoon, and now it's kind of faded. They have something called the Mohawk Hudson convergence that will happen sometimes, and that convergence of winds can actually create light snow over the Capital District for several hours. Now, that's kind of faded over time, but you're not done by any means. There's going to be this entire band of snowfall that will eventually propagate to the north with time. So, guys, the next thing I want to do here is kind of switch from the radars, right? We've talked about the model, right, with the projected timing of the system moving across the mid Atlantic and Northeast, but also we've looked at the national radar and also the high resolution radar. And we're getting a sense of these heavy bands moving into the area. I think it would be fun now to kind of check out and see where the snow's actually fallen and where it could be picking up here, according to the cameras in each one of these states that we've discussed. Now, I want to begin in Virginia because I think for you guys in particular, it's going to begin to change um, in the sense of some places have already received their snowfall, and then other places are just now beginning to get it. Um, so I want to start here along I-64, where we were having whiteout conditions in a place such as Afton Mountain. So let's take a look here. There is some light snow. Looks like it's still coming down in this area. All of this is fresh snow, by the way, up in Afton. So you guys saw anywhere between about 3 and 6 inches of snowfall in parts of the mountainous areas of Albemarle County, just to the west of Charlottesville, Virginia. Now, further to the east here, as we get towards I-64, moving eastward towards Richmond, Virginia, near the capital here, we're starting to see that change over from rain to snow. Again, most of the model data is showing anywhere between 1 and 3 inches for Richmond. And there might be more even as you march to the coast. So as you move, let's say, even to places like Williamsburg, Virginia, you guys might actually get more than Richmond and Charlottesville combined. So it's going to be interesting here because the snowfall rates are going to really pick up here in Richmond for a couple of hours. And that cold air is going to really be pulled in, right, into this system. And that could allow for accumulation through Sunday evening here. Our last stop here is going to be in Northern Virginia. So let's take a look at that here and see what's happening around George Mason University. And the snowfall is really starting to accumulate here. I looked at this weather cam around 3 p.m. this afternoon. There was nothing really falling in terms of snowfall. So during that time frame, we've changed from rain to snow, and it's actually beginning to accumulate in this area. It looks like a good coating to an inch of snowfall on the ground for you guys. And this is going to be a sign of things to come. It looks like we're going to probably have snowfall through midnight, at least in Northern Virginia. Some of the models, again, are showing through early morning on Monday before the snow comes to an end for places such as George Mason and perhaps even as far west as Sterling, Virginia. It looks like, yeah, you guys will probably get snowfall through tonight, through early morning. All right, so we looked at the state of Virginia. The next place I want to kind of go here is into Maryland and take a look at what's happening in different places across the state of Maryland. The place that was receiving snowfall early on, and we're going to probably have to pull this back up here to get it going again, but around Hagerstown, Maryland, you guys were receiving snowfall early this afternoon. And it looks like you're still receiving snowfall at the moment. Looks like it's coming down at a moderate rate here. Uh, it looks like we've had some accumulation. When I checked around 3 p.m., there wasn't much um, in the way of accumulation on the grassy areas here. We can now see it in this particular camera view. And this is on I-70 West near I-81, that junction. And we are seeing that traffic is moving along pretty well here with this heavy snowfall coming down. Looks like you guys might get upwards of an inch or two. I would doubt that you get much more beyond that, though. Now, as you move further to the east in the state of Maryland, we will see those accumulations begin to rise, especially as we move into the evening and into the overnight areas or the overnight time frame here. So, a little bit further to the east here of Hagerstown, you get into um, basically the DC metro area. And this is a place called Bethesda in the northwestern part, um, almost into the suburbs of DC, that area. Let's see if we can get this going again for you guys. Oh, yeah. So Bethesda's now changed from rain to snow, and this will probably pick up from this point forward. So you guys, I think, could see anywhere between maybe 2 to 4 inches in this area. Um, I don't think it's going to really overperform in this area necessarily, but yeah, you guys will probably pick up anywhere between 2 and 4 inches, and snowfall will be picking up basically between now and midnight uh, for this particular area. Now, as we get into Baltimore, that region, this is actually going into the tunnel here, I think, along Interstate 95 here. It says, "Welcome to Baltimore." So we can see that here. And it looks like still rainfall for you guys currently at the moment. There might be some snowfall beginning to mix in here pretty soon. But yeah, it looks like maybe mostly rainfall currently for the city of Baltimore. So yeah, we're seeing mainly snowfall to the west of the system here over places like the state of Virginia, the state of Maryland. Mainly the western edge is seeing snowfall at the moment, but it's beginning to change over, right, in places like DC. And that means that's only a certain amount of time, right? Probably in the next hour or so that Baltimore begins to change over from rain to snow. Now, what was surprising to me really was over the state of Delaware. And I think it was around Dewey Beach. I think that's how you say it. Let's see if we can interact with this particular image here. Here we go, guys. So yeah, we can see that heavy snowfall still falling in this area here. I think around Dewey Beach, you probably picked up anywhere between 2 and 4 inches already. You can see where the snowfall is really coming down. And one thing you can really see from this particular camera is the winds picking up. And you guys will likely see blizzard conditions in this area. So between now and 8 p.m., I wouldn't be surprised if this camera really starts shaking. So that'd be kind of cool to see. We'll see the trees and everything begin moving in this area, probably more each hour here. So between now and 6, 7, 8 p.m. time frame, we'll be able to come back and revisit this particular video and see those changes. But yeah, very heavy snowfall here, blizzard conditions along the Cape area of Delaware. So the next stop I want to make here is in Dover. All right, so now we can see it, guys. So yeah, in Dover, we've got probably anywhere between 1 and 2 inches of snowfall on the ground. We can see that plows are moving up and down the roadway. The roads are pretty clear currently. But yeah, the snowfall rates are starting to pick up here in Dover. Yeah, we can still see that there's plenty of traffic out on the roads, right? But as you see this in motion, you can see where the snowfall rates are pretty heavy here. We probably are seeing around an inch an hour here, snowfall rates in the city of Dover. So our next stop here in Delaware is going to be Wilmington. So let's see if we can check on Wilmington here for a moment. See what's happening in the northern city of Delaware. Um, you guys can probably have to close out and then come back to this. Here we go. So this is a different camera here, but again, this gives you an indication of what's happening now in Wilmington. You got to see before that there was really no snowfall, again, as of about 3 p.m. this afternoon. But now we've got moderate to heavy snowfall moving into places like Wilmington, Delaware. So throughout the state of Delaware, traffic is going to probably get worse, right, between now and midnight for you guys. So if you have anything to do in places like Wilmington, get it done now and get home because it's only going to get worse from here on out. And Wilmington is one of those places that will likely see over a foot of snowfall from this system. It looks like anywhere from Dover down to Dewey Beach, like I was showing you guys before, is already getting moderate to heavy snowfall from the system. So we got to see Delaware. We got to see where the heavy snowfall was really coming down in places such as Dover. Now I want to show you guys New Jersey. And it looks like my New Jersey maps have really fallen apart here. So you're going to have to give me a moment to see if I can get this going for you guys. Well, unfortunately, you guys, it looks like New Jersey, the particular cameras here that I had set up are not working. So we'll make a stop in Connecticut instead and maybe come back to these later. All right, so now we're in Connecticut. This is the Hartford area, and this is pretty up to date. You can see where we have still images, right, of this area. Let's do this for a moment. Kind of back out for a moment here. Let's see if we can get the latest update in the city of Hartford. Now, unfortunately, if you go to the website here for the Department of Transportation for the entire state of Connecticut, it's hard to find um, any videos of current activity here. You will see updated images that are taken here along the interstates of Connecticut. But throughout here, we can see that there is snowfall on the ground. A lot of this is, I think, from a previous storm here in Connecticut. And this is again near Hartford, what we're looking at here. This is Interstate 91, exit 29 here. You can't really pick up because again, it's not in motion here, but there is snowfall coming down in Connecticut currently at the moment, even as far north as Hartford. So guys, we'll kind of back out of this image for now, and we'll go down to the southern shore in New Haven. And this area in particular is receiving heavy snowfall at the moment. Now, this image that you're seeing here of New Haven was from earlier today. You can see that there's a bit more light outside. This was around 3 p.m., and they were getting snowfall at this point. So, if we were to check New Haven again and look at the current image, let's see if we can actually pull it up better here. Again, it's hard to pick up again because it is a still image, a still shot of what's happening here in New Haven, but there is moderate snowfall coming down for you guys at the moment. This is I-95, exit 46 here near New Haven, Connecticut. So our next stop is going to be at New London. This is the far eastern part of the state of Connecticut. So once again, around 3 p.m., nothing was happening, right? From this particular image here, we can see that not much was going on. So we can find something where something is going on in New London. I think if anything, maybe light snow for you guys moving into the area. And this is to the west of New London. Can't really make out here anything in the image, but if we're receiving any snowfall at this time, it's generally light in the New London area. Again, this is in the eastern part of Connecticut. So yeah, we've looked at Connecticut. Unfortunately, New Jersey, one of the heaviest areas for the snowfall currently. We weren't able to look at the webcams, so that's a little bit disappointing. But we'll take a look at Pennsylvania now, kind of interact with some of the cameras here. So this is in Harrisburg, the capital region here of Pennsylvania. And if anything, it looks like the temperatures are too warm currently in the Harrisburg area. It looks like you guys might be getting a rain snow mix currently, but temperatures are probably marginal, where they're in that 33 to 35-degree range. So nothing's actually sticking at the moment. And it might take another hour or two before anything really does begin to stick in this area. Next place I want to take a look at is Scranton. So let's see if we can look at the live video here. Again, this is in the northeastern part of the state of Pennsylvania. And yeah, this is a pretty shot here. It's a good nature shot here. This is kind of looking at one of the mountains here in Pennsylvania on Interstate 81, the intersection with Route 6 business in the state of Pennsylvania. And nothing's happening currently here. The band of snow is still well off to the south. Again, it might take a couple hours before it actually moves northward into this area. And what about Philadelphia? Now, a little while ago in Philadelphia, the snow was coming down. I did check those around 4:30, the cameras here. And of course, the snowfall was beginning to really come down at that point. And this entire area where you see white along the side of the road is fresh snow. No, none of this was on the ground about an hour ago. So the snowfall is coming down heavy here. And we can see one of the stadiums here off to the right-hand side. And I can't remember if this is a baseball stadium or a football stadium. So if anybody in the chat knows here and they know this particular image in this particular area of Philadelphia, feel free to leave that in the chat. But yeah, heavy snowfall here in this part of Philadelphia. And our last stop, you guys, is going to be in New York State. So I want to look at New York City. I want to look at Long Island. I want to look at the Capital District near Albany, kind of give a general idea of what's happening in the southern part of the state of New York, at least. So you guys have an idea of what's happening. So this video is going to be just to the west of Brooklyn in New York City. And much of what you're seeing here on the roadway was not there when I checked around 3 p.m. So this is mostly fresh snowfall that's fallen here in New York City, but it's coming down moderate to heavy at the moment. You can see how visibility is probably reduced to under a mile currently, maybe a half a mile in some cases, but moderate to heavy snowfall here in New York City currently. The next location I kind of picked out was Medford, and this is in the center part, or the central part, excuse me, of Long Island. This would be another cool area to check out. And this is live video of Medford. And you can see where, again, this is all fresh snow, really, that's fallen. And you guys have probably seen 3 to 4 inches already from the system. And it's probably coming down at, again, those 1 to 2 inch an hour rates. And the snow is going to really pile up here. This is going to be one of the big winners, right, from this blizzard that occurs. Now, unfortunately, for places like Medford and the rest of Long Island, you guys are going to get into the heavy wind. Just as we were talking about Delaware before, this part of New York State is going to receive very high winds from the system. Again, approaching those blizzard levels of 30 to 50 miles an hour sustained for a time. Our last stop is going to be in Albany. So this is just to the south of Albany. And we'll see if this comes up for you guys. This is along Interstate 87, moving south of Albany here around exit 22. And again, we saw snowfall here on the lighter side earlier in the day around Albany, that area, but it's kind of quieting down here recently. And it's kind of a lull before the storm. You guys will be seeing snowfall probably after the 8 or 9 o'clock time frame, but the snowfall will begin to fill into the area at that time and will last overnight. So dropping anywhere between probably 4 and maybe up to 7 inches of snowfall in the higher areas around Albany. So, guys, what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to kind of back out of this. I'm going to look at what I'll do is I'll pull up the video here for New York City, um, for anybody that lives in that area. And I'm going to take a look at chat here for a moment and kind of interact with any questions that have been put here in chat and try to respond to those. Well, thank you, Candy Jane. I appreciate the feedback here. Just for anybody in the chat that's watching, is there any particular location you guys would like to see in terms of traffic? I don't know if you have any loved ones on the road this evening or tomorrow morning, but we can definitely take a look at some of these cameras together and get an idea of what's happening. So again, this is a live look in New York City. You can see where the moderate to heavy snowfall band has moved into the city area. This is around Brooklyn. And you can imagine this is the case not only for Brooklyn and New York City, but throughout places like Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and even places to the east of New York City, right? As you move out towards Long Island, heavy snowfall throughout. We were looking at places like Delaware, right? Along the Cape area and southern part of Delaware was receiving heavy snowfall. And they've been getting snowfall really throughout the afternoon in that particular area. All right, guys, I've pulled up the high resolution radar here again, and we were noticing the heavy snowfall over Long Island uh, in the live camera footage that we were looking at. And even towards Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn, New York City here. We were seeing moderate to heavy snowfall move in for you guys. And this is only going to pick up in New York City. You can see where there's this heavy band offshore. Again, this is anywhere between 1 and 2 inches an hour snowfall rates that will be moving into the area soon. Again, around Long Island, you guys are already seeing over an inch an hour here currently, what's falling um, according to this radar image. Another location we were seeing just a moment ago was in Philadelphia, and it looked like we almost had whiteout conditions in that area. And I think this was in the eastern part of Philadelphia, what we were looking at. And let's kind of move this forward to the last frame here. And you can see where that heavy band is beginning to move into Philadelphia now. Uh, you guys just saw a heavy band previously, right? It's moved off to the west here, impacting areas around Interstate 78. So if you're moving, let's say, between Harrisburg and Trenton, in particular here in New Jersey, this entire area is getting moderate to heavy snowfall as well. The next stop I want to make here is around Dover, Delaware. You can see where we have several bands of heavy snowfall. We'll kind of put this in motion here for you guys to take a look at. But generally speaking, you can see how the banding is occurring here in the state of Delaware and around Dover in particular. You guys are going to probably get many hours of very heavy snowfall. And you can imagine anywhere where you're picking up the darker greens here, or the deeper greens on the map, this is where the heaviest snowfall is occurring. And in some cases, you do get the banding set up where you start to see these yellows. And if you get into the yellow, that's typically about 2 inches or more of snowfall that's coming down per hour. And it looks like that's the case around the southern tip of Delaware. Now, into the DC area, there is a heavy band to the west of DC currently set up. We're talking about the Sterling area. This area typically does get a heavy band of snowfall in the nor'easters that do occur. Looking back at the history of these kind of storms, right, that hit the area. Around the Sterling and the Reston area, you guys are receiving very heavy snowfall at the moment. And this band will probably propagate to the east, like we were talking about before, as we move through the night. And one thing you guys will probably notice by looking at each one of these radars is that they're only good for a certain distance. This particular local radar around the DC area is showing lighter snow over Dover, Delaware. That's simply not true. So again, if we were to flip back to this, you can see where that's certainly not the case. And again, much of Delaware is receiving moderate to heavy snowfall at this time. What about the Richmond area? Again, we saw them change over to snow recently. Are they still getting heavy snow currently? Again, it looks like more of a moderate snowfall near Richmond. I kind of question whether or not they'll have heavy enough snowfall to accumulate here in the capital area of the state of Virginia. But in places further to the east, let's say towards Hampton and Norfolk, snowfall rates could pick up heavy enough where you guys actually see more accumulation along the eastern shore of Virginia, perhaps even as far east as Virginia Beach. Again, this heavier band is going to begin to propagate to the east over the next several hours. And finally, as we go towards central Virginia near the Lynchburg area, yeah, there is some lighter snowfall coming down for you guys. You can kind of see the lighter bands kind of building back into the area, but again, temperatures are marginal here. They're probably around the 33 to 34-degree range. Um, Again, it has to just be heavier than this for it to really accumulate. And into West Virginia, of course, we have some upslope snow shower activity that's occurring. That will be probably occurring through the rest of tonight. So the capital of West Virginia here in Charleston, you guys will probably pick up a couple of inches of snowfall from these snow showers that are occurring now um, into early tomorrow morning. Okay, so what about State College, Pennsylvania? This is in the very center part of the state. We can see where we have light to moderate snowfall. And again, where you have the greens here, that's where you're actually seeing better accumulation rates. You guys will probably pick up mainly light to moderate snowfall amounts in the 2 to 4 inch range. It does pick up off to the east, especially as the storm really gets going as we get into later portions of tonight, early tomorrow morning. Places to the east, such as Harrisburg, that we were looking at before, you guys will probably get a really heavy band at some point as the storm begins to really pick up in intensity. And the same thing is true towards Allentown. I think Allentown will probably pick up the most of anybody in the state of Pennsylvania. See if this is really picking up better on another local radar. And we can kind of see that here where Allentown and Reading are picking up on moderate snow currently. Again, the further away you get from these radar um, stations that are set up, the less accurate it is. And you'll notice that in Allentown, they're dead center between four different radar stations. So each one of them are not going to do it justice. And you can see over upstate New York, not much is happening currently. And the same thing is true for much of Massachusetts. Connecticut, it looks like you guys are starting to get light to moderate snowfall move into the area. If we move down to Binghamton, you can see where that snowfall is now beginning to die down in places like Syracuse. Again, that we're receiving it earlier this afternoon. And this is a radar station near Plymouth, Massachusetts. And we can see that that light to moderate snowfall is beginning to move into Hartford and Bridgeport and places like that. But this can be hard to actually show that. Connecticut was one of the places where we had still images. So it'd really have to pick up an intensity to see those snowflakes on the camera. And then, of course, over Long Island, you see that heavy band moving into the area now. We're at, I think, 5:55 p.m. currently. And you can see where the heaviest snowfall is now moving into Long Island and eventually New York City. And even further to the south and west here into New Jersey towards Tom's River, very heavy snowfall over this area. So, New York City, you have a heavy band on the way, without a doubt. We can see from both of these local radar stations where heavy snowfall is beginning to move into New York City area. So, that camera we were seeing in Brooklyn is going to really start to widen out, I think, with time. Philadelphia, Trenton, Tom's River, Edison, that entire area here down to Atlantic City, all of this area is going to get so much snowfall. I would pretty much say it's a guaranteed at least foot of snow from the system. Yeah, we can kind of see that heavier band over Annapolis begin to propagate off to the east here. It doesn't mean that Washington, D.C. is going to miss out on the snow by any means. Yeah, we can see where we have really two separate heavy snow bands. We have one near Annapolis and one to the west of Washington, D.C. All right, so what I want to do next here is I want to zoom in on the national radar and take a look at that with you guys. If you ever work with Weather Underground, you'll notice that you have to reset the image every so often. But yeah, we can see snowfall over eastern Pennsylvania here, much of New Jersey, throughout southern portions of New York State, and then down here through eastern shore of Maryland and Virginia. You guys are changing over to heavy snowfall currently. And what you're seeing off to the west here, the western edge is probably too light in order to actually accumulate in places like Lynchburg we were looking at before. But yeah, if you live east of Richmond, it looks like we have heavy snowfall in the area at the moment, and temperatures are around 33 degrees. Definitely cold enough if you're getting heavy snowfall for it to start to accumulate. All right, guys, I'm going to take another break here for a moment. I'm going to leave this radar image up and going. I'm going to check chat and see if I have any questions there. And then we'll get back to maybe looking at the latest weather model. Well, guys, I'm taking a look at the latest model run here for the high resolution model, and not much has changed here. We can see where rain is projected to change to snow in Virginia and parts of Maryland. Um, and we have the heavy snowfall moving into places like Dover, Delaware, northward towards southern New Jersey, and eventually over Long Island as we get into around the 10 and 11 o'clock time frame. But one thing it's not really picking up on is that heavy band of snowfall moving into New York City now. Again, we're talking about between 6 and 7 p.m. There's a very heavy band of snowfall that's beginning to move on shore there. So, one thing to take in mind from these models is that broadly speaking, they do a good job at projecting okay, where's the western edge of the storm going to be? Or where's the northern edge of the system's going to be? And even the position of the low pressure, it's not going to be perfect with. So just kind of keep that in mind as we kind of move this forward. You'll notice how, yeah, we can see where the snowfall really gets going into places like Albany, New York, as we get into the early morning hours around 3 a.m. and even over Boston at this time as well. So again, around maybe 1 to 2 a.m., it looks like moderate to heavy snowfall moving into the Boston area. And this entire time, right over Long Island, New York City, Hartford, 1 to 2 inches an hour of snowfall is coming down. So, yeah, without a doubt, I think you guys are going to see a foot of snowfall along eastern New England, along that I 95 corridor. So, this model has not changed, and it does update each hour, but we're really seeing the same thing. Um, and it looks like we do have consistency um, in the American model, the GFS, and we're seeing consistency even in the European model. One thing that the European model struggles with, and if we were to take a look at that now, is it doesn't really pick up on convergence between ridges or mountains, and it really struggles with that. So if I were to look at, let's see if we got the latest here. Well, the latest model's doing pretty good. But in the zone around Albany, it was really struggling with before, showing the heaviest snowfall staying to the south. But yeah, even with the European here, we're seeing where it's projecting heavy, heavy snowfall over places like Boston, over Hartford, and even Providence, Rhode Island. Now, beyond this point, we can see where the snowfall continues through tomorrow afternoon, whether you live in Boston or let's say you move up to Portland, Maine. It looks like moderate to heavy snowfall will continue up through about 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. And what's always amazing with these systems is the wraparound moisture. You can see over West Virginia, Western New York here, there's always like this northwest wind that kicks in behind the system and takes some of that moisture off of the Great Lakes and brings it up slope, right, into the higher terrain. And we get snow showers through the entirety of the event in some of these places. Um, But yeah, it looks like when all is said and done, we're going to end up with quite a bit of snowfall here in the Northeast. So let's take a look at some of these snowfall amounts. I want to take a look at the NAM here for a moment to give you an idea. And let's kind of roll this back here so you can see what the NAM is actually showing in terms of snowfall. It doesn't do a good job necessarily of showing the northern extent. It is showing it getting into places such as Albany, into southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, even southern Maine here. But I think it will get a little bit further north than what it's showing here. And it overestimates typically the amounts of snowfall, even in New England, with this particular model here. So let's do this for a moment. Let's see what it's showing in terms of the positive change in snow. And this particular model is showing an additional, so again, from basically 6 p.m. this evening, an additional maybe 3 to 4 inches in the, I don't understand why it's just showing that, additional 3 to 4 inches there in the Dover area. I think it's projecting maybe Dover being a little bit too warm to get higher accumulations, but I think it's doing a very bad job with that. But is showing over a foot of snowfall for much of the Northeast. Again, we're talking about New Jersey into southern New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, into parts of Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, uh, southern Vermont, and southern portions of Maine, even. And there's going to be a bullseye in here. And where it sets up, again, this model doesn't entirely know either, but there's going to be an area of over 12 inches that does set up from this event. Now, generally speaking, I think around New York City, that entire area could pick up 12 to 18 inches easily. And this is true for Hartford, uh, Providence, Boston. I think it is getting that part right. Now, if we were to switch over models, let's say to the high resolution model, see if it will show that for us here. Let's go to the previous run if it'll allow us to do so. Hmm. All right, struggling at the moment. So what we'll do, we'll go to the American model, the GFS, and see what the additional accumulations are projected to be. Now the GFS is on the lower end here. We can kind of see where it's showing the heaviest amounts of snowfall staying to the south here and along the eastern shore of New Jersey. You can still see amounts of over a foot of snowfall around the Atlantic City area, but it's showing far less in terms of snowfall here for New York City up to Boston. Again, maybe 6 to 12 inches instead, according to this particular model. But yeah, it's going to probably be somewhere in between, you guys. It's going to probably be, instead of 6 inches like this model showing for New York City, and instead of maybe 18 inches, it might be somewhere in the middle. So I think in general, 12 to 14 inches is a good amount to expect in and around the New York City area. And this is the a lower resolution model run of the NAM that we were looking at before, and this is probably more accurate. Again, it shows that green bullseye here around the Massachusetts area, but it shows even amounts of 6 to maybe 8 inches around the Albany area. And then down south towards New York City, over a foot of snowfall. And the same thing is true for Long Island and parts of New Jersey. And this is all additional snowfall that's being shown here. Guys, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to start taking a look at these different images here, beginning in the state of state of Virginia actually, and kind of moving back north and east over time. And the place I'm going to start with here is Afton Mountain. This is the place I was actually beginning to see snow first in the state of Virginia. You can see where the wind is starting to pick up here on top of Afton Mountain, but the snow has really come to an end here. It was very heavy around 3 p.m. this afternoon along Interstate 64 here in this mountain pass. Now, if we look at Richmond, this might be the next place we need to take a look at here. I hope you guys can see it, but there is snowfall coming down. And what's harder to see is that if you move off to the bottom left, there is accumulating snow in the grassy areas. We're not really seeing it on the roadways yet in Richmond, but it is beginning to accumulate now in the city of Richmond. And this is around the George Mason University. And you can see where it's not whiteout conditions. This is just ice on the camera here. So what we need to do is kind of back out and see if we can find a different camera for this storm. Here we go. This is actually a good one. And this is in around George Mason University in Northern Virginia, just to the south of Washington, D.C. And you can see where the roads are snow covered here. Um, a good deal of snowfall is coming down. This is probably one of the heavier bands we were looking at before. Hey guys, so I want to go back to Maryland now and take a look at some of these places here. Starting off in Hagerstown, Maryland. One of the things we're having to do here with our Maryland cameras is back out and then come back into these particular images. And this is very hard to see. We're going to probably have to find a different camera coming up, but I can kind of make out some of the snowfall here in the grassy areas of Hagerstown. But in general, we really can't see what's going on. I would imagine the roads are in pretty good condition currently. It looks like the snowfall rates have probably dropped within the last hour or so. It was coming down at a very good clip around 3 p.m. this afternoon. In fact, let's see if we can find a different camera here to kind of replace the one that we have. And this is a little bit further to the east in Hagerstown. You can see where we have a good amount of snowfall here on the ground. This is I-70 West, um, maybe milepost 65, I'm not sure, here in Maryland. But we can see where the traffic is moving along pretty good. There might be 1 to 2 inches of snowfall on the ground here, just to the east of Hagerstown. Now, much further to the east, right, as we go towards DC itself in the Bethesda area, this is going to be the next um, image that we're looking at. Now, this is from way earlier. You can see where the sun was uh, not fully set here in Bethesda. So let's kind of back out for a moment. And I can make out here, I don't know how good the quality is of an image for you guys here, but I can make out that there's a good amount of snowfall coming down currently. But it looks like the roads are still clear. I imagine the temperatures are marginal at the moment here, maybe 33, 34 degrees in the Bethesda area. And what that does mean, though, is you move out of the city here, those temperatures probably begin to fall, and you probably begin to pick up the snowfall, especially in the grassy areas, over bridges and overpasses, that kind of thing. You'll start to see the snowfall begin to accumulate in these areas around Bethesda. Okay, our next stop is going to be in Baltimore, and this is going to be at the tunnel here in Interstate 95. So once again, we'll have to back out initially and move back in. And it looks like we just have wet streets here at the moment, and this is in the southern portion of Baltimore. Maybe we can find a better camera here to get a better idea of what's going on. Let's take a look at this particular camera here. Yeah, this is the camera we had before. Let's take a look at it a little bit closer here. Yeah, it looks like the roads are just mainly wet here. And I imagine that the precipitation's changing from rain to snow here in southern Baltimore. But again, it's going to take a while for temperatures to be cold enough to actually see accumulations on the roadways here. Now, I'm curious, let's go to the northern part of town here in Baltimore and see what the difference might be. Let's go out to a place called Pikesville. Take a look at this area. See if we can find a good image too. I want to have one with a little bit more clarity for you guys. This is pretty good. All right, so this is west of Pikesville, and this is going to be as you get on the outskirts of Baltimore to the north and west. And we can see how traffic is moving here. Really no problem still currently. Um, I can kind of make out some snowfall on the top of the vehicles here, but again, nothing on the roadways. But I do see snowfall. If you look at the actual like lights here, you can pick up on the snowfall that's actually coming down currently. And is coming down at a good rate. So I-695 at Old Court, and this is going south on I-695. So what we're seeing again is that Maryland has basically changed the snowfall from the western part of the state all the way to places like Baltimore, right? So we're seeing snowfall pretty much in all these areas currently. Now, what I want to do is kind of work through these cameras here and start with, I think it's the Dewey Beach area. So I got to reload these for you guys here to get them to come back up. But yeah, we were talking about the wind before, right? And you can see how the wind is really beginning to pick up in this area. So not only are we seeing the moderate to heavy snowfall rates, but the wind will continue to increase overnight. So we'll start to see blowing and drifting snow, especially if the snowfall amounts really pick up in this area. And I do believe we'll see well over a foot of snowfall in places like Dewey Beach here along the southeastern shore of the state of Delaware. And that's unfortunate. I really do like this camera. So, of course, I want that to reset for you guys so you can see it. It's a really cool area. All right, I guess our time is up. It eventually just kicks you off. All right, so we'll back out of that. And what we'll do now, we'll go to Dover and we'll take a look at Dover, Delaware together. All right, so this is the capital of Delaware. And we can see if you look off to the left where we have more light with the camera, you can see where the snowfall, well, now it's switched positions. Now it's on the right. You can see where the snowfall is really coming down here in Dover. But this is going to be one of the big winners, right, that we were talking about before. We were seeing the heavy bands move back into Dover in recent hours here. I'm guessing maybe 1 to 2 inches on the ground currently. It looks like you guys are probably picking up rates of 1 to 2 inches an hour now in the Dover, Delaware area. Now, as far as road conditions, it looks like, according to what we're currently seeing, is that mainly slush on the roadways. And I imagine as the temperatures begin to drop here from maybe 33 to 31 degrees and the snowfall rates continue at 1 to 2 inches an hour, we'll start to see more accumulations on the roadways as we approach midnight. Our final stop here in Delaware, at least for now, is going to be up here in Wilmington. So this is in Wilmington, Delaware. You can see where it's snowing here, but again, nothing really on the streets yet. You can kind of make out that it's starting to pick up on the pavement here of Delaware, of Wilmington, Delaware, excuse me. But yeah, the snowfall is coming down at a moderate clip here currently. You see where the snowfall is really starting to accumulate on roads uh, further to the south, right in Delaware. But for right now in Wilmington, it looks like you guys are getting accumulation on the pavement, on the sidewalks, um, and that will only pick up with time. The temperatures will continue to drop here in the next hour or two and be sufficient for accumulation here on the roadways. I'm hoping New Jersey will show up here. This is going to be one of the big areas that picks up snowfall. And let's see if we can interact with this image. Maybe we can hit escape and kind of back out of this. But currently, nothing for New Jersey, unfortunately. I'll try each one just to see if I can get it to work here. Maybe we can refresh it. Here we go. All right, guys. So this was in Newark. Let's see if we can get some of the cameras here going for New Jersey. All right, so I don't know if we can make this image larger, unfortunately. So you'll have to bear with me here. This is New Jersey, I guess Interstate 129 or Route 129 here looking south. And yeah, we can see where the winds are starting to pick up here around the Newark area. And snowfall is really picking up on the grassy surfaces right now, probably the sidewalks. It looks like the streets are pretty clear currently, but I think that's going to change with time. I'd imagine in the next hour or two, the streets are going to be pretty dangerous to travel on as we approach midnight. So let's back out of this. Hopefully, we can kind of save this location now. I'll leave this up here, kind of back out of this. And let's see if we can refresh each one of these images. One of the more, I guess, interesting areas to look at with the storm is along these Cape areas. Um, a lot of times when we look at nor'easters, the Cape areas stay all rain. The nor'easters will typically bring in too much warm air, and we'll see all rain along the coast. That has not been the case with the system. And while we're seeing this here, again, along the same route here, I guess the junction here between 129 and 29 in New Jersey here, we can see where uh, there is some snow cover here in the overpass area. I don't know about uh, the roadway going up underneath. It looks like, yeah, we are seeing some snowfall here in the overpass areas that's accumulating on the roadways. So we can go a little bit further to the south here in New Jersey. This is actually a good image. I wish we could kind of zoom in on it for you. But yeah, this gives us a bit more clarity about what's happening here along the interstates. There is snowfall accumulating along the sides of the roads here, but it looks like there's a clear strip going down the middle for each one of these areas. So I guess the snow plows are out and they're providing a clear path for people to travel on. But in general, I think the temperatures are cold enough, and I also think the snowfall rates are high enough, really, for accumulation to take place on the roadways here in southern New Jersey. We'll kind of leave this back up here. Hopefully, again, we can revisit you guys each one of these images and kind of pull those back up. All right, so we're going to refresh another image here in New Jersey. And let's see if we can kind of move a little bit further to the south here. Bring up our legend again and see if we can find one of these locations around Atlantic City. Oh, under maintenance. And find one that's clear for you. We've had to refresh these different images here, so nothing's really coming up the way that was planned before. Um, Here we go. This is near the southern shore of New Jersey. And you can see how much more accumulations on the ground currently. There's probably several inches of snowfall here in the southern portion of the state of New Jersey. So if you head out towards Cape May, so we can pull up this image here. Yeah, we can see where there's quite a bit more snowfall on the ground here. And snowfall rates are still pretty heavy here, right? From what we were seeing on the radar. But yeah, probably anywhere between 3 and 4 inches on the ground already from this system in South New Jersey. All right, so we'll take a look at one more camera view here, get an idea of how the roadways are doing here around the Cape region. And yeah, we can see where there's tracks moving through the snowfall here. And that means road conditions are probably pretty poor in the back roads. Um, so yeah, if you're traveling throughout New Jersey, I think we're going to see pretty poor travel conditions overnight. All right, so that's good news. We got to see what's happening in New Jersey. Now I want to move back to Connecticut, kind of take a look at this region, and might have to change up some of the cameras again because it looks like one of ours, this one in particular, is been covered in ice. So we're gonna have to make a few changes here coming up. But let's go ahead and interact here in the Hartford area, get an idea of what's happening. Again, a lot of these are going to be still images, you guys, just to let you know. So we'll be clicking on different still images, I think, here in the Hartford area, just because none of these are in motion. But in general, we can see that the traffic is moving around pretty well here in Hartford currently. A lot of this has to do with the snowfall rates currently in Connecticut. They're very light. We're seeing mainly light snowfall at this time across the state of Connecticut. Yeah. So really no accumulation yet in the state of Connecticut. I imagine the same thing is true as you move down towards New Haven. Let's back out of Hartford here for a moment and take a look at New Haven, see if we can get a different camera currently here. So let's go down here to New Haven for a moment. That was the best one too, unfortunately, in Connecticut. So kind of move around here, see if we can find something different. So pretty much the same thing throughout. We're seeing a lot of these cameras have ice and snow on them. Let's kind of zoom in here near East Rock. But you'll have to take my word for it, I guess. There is light snow occurring in Connecticut, and we saw that on the radar currently. But in general, uh, unfortunately speaking, here in Connecticut, we can't find any um, animation or any video in motion here for you guys to take a look at what's currently happening here. But even from this image, I can make out that there is snowfall on the ground here in Connecticut. Some of this is from the storm system before that delivered snowfall here to Connecticut, but I do see snow on top of some of the vehicles here. So there is accumulation occurring even now. Now, this is a pretty good image. This is Milford, Connecticut, Route 15, exit 54. And you can see where there's snowfall on the sides of the roads here. You can see kind of on the image itself, around the lights, we can see where the snowfall is coming down at a good clip here. So around Milford, Connecticut, it looks like maybe just to the west of New Haven, that area, we're seeing a moderate to heavy snowfall currently in that area. Now, what about New London? This is a little bit further east. See if we can get a better image here. Again, lighter snowfall moving into the area here even. Maybe if we go up towards Greenville, maybe we can pick up on a better image here. So it's very hard to pick up here what's actually happening in this part of the state of Connecticut. Let's try one more area here. All right, this is probably the best one for the New London area. Again, this is on Interstate 95, exit 86. You can see where there's kind of a shine on the roads here. So there's probably snow falling, but it's just not sticking yet in eastern Connecticut. at least along the roads. I believe it probably is cold enough to stick on the grassy surfaces. Um, but yeah, Interstate 95, exit 86, joining with Route 184 and 12 here, Long Hill Road. So this might be a good one to come back to before we end the video. All right, so we'll kind of jump back to Pennsylvania for a moment, take a look at what's happening there. I think what I want to do first is go back to the city of Philadelphia. And wow, Philadelphia, the snow is really coming down heavy there. Almost want to leave it on this image for a bit. But I imagine, yeah, Philadelphia is going to be one of the areas that picks up quite a bit of snowfall here. But yeah, if anybody has a clue about what stadium this is off to the right here, is this a baseball stadium? Is this a football stadium? If anybody knows Philadelphia really well, this would be something interesting to bring up in chat. But yeah, it looks like the road conditions are not poor yet, but I imagine driving conditions are quite terrible. Yeah, you've almost got whiteout conditions here in Philadelphia. All right, so we've taken a look at Philadelphia. Let's check out the capital area of Pennsylvania and get an idea of what's happening there currently. So this, of course, is around Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I can see here in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen that there is snowfall coming down. And as far as snowfall on the roadways, it's hard to make out here, but it looks like a little bit of snowfall is beginning to accumulate if you go to the north, not the north, but to the upper left-hand corner of the screen here. You can see some snowfall trying to accumulate on the roadways here, especially on the pavement here as you get towards the lights. But definitely lighter snowfall here by comparison to what's falling in Philadelphia at the moment. It looks like the roads are mainly wet here too. If you look at everyone traveling here in Harrisburg, it looks like the road conditions are not bad currently. All right, so our last stop here in Pennsylvania, we're going to go up to Scranton. And one of the things we noticed on the radar before, and we'll double check here with Scranton here on the radar here in a moment, but the snowfall was still off to the south here. I think you guys, just like Albany, New York earlier today, probably received some light snowfall. Looks like it's going to be kicking back in maybe towards around the 8, 9, maybe even 10 o'clock time frame for you guys. But there will be a heavier band of snowfall that moves in overnight, early tomorrow morning for the Scranton area of Pennsylvania. So yeah, we're coming full circle here again, right? We're going back through all the states here, looking at their traffic cams. But now we're going back to New York State again here, in New York City in particular. Um, so let's go ahead and zoom in here to Brooklyn, the place we were looking at before. Let's see if we can find one of these images in motion again. We actually had a really good one before. So the Grand Army Plaza, for those that know it, that's a beautiful area of New York City. I don't know if I've actually been to this part of New York City, but it's very pretty. Unfortunately, this is not in motion. But yeah, we can make out here that this part of New York City is getting a lot of heavy snow currently. And this is as of 6:33 p.m. Sunday evening. Let's back out of this for a moment. There are some animated videos here as we move off west of Brooklyn here, maybe into downtown. So we can find one of these videos, see what's actually happening. Here we go. This is the image we had earlier. And you can see, yeah, this is a great image of what's happening west of Brooklyn, New York. Traffic is still moving pretty good, but we do have heavy snowfall that's coming down. It looks like it's really accumulated well. This is another area I would say has probably picked up anywhere from 3 to maybe 4 inches of snowfall already. And a lot of it has to do with the 1 to 2 inch snowfall rate in New York City that's currently coming down. But yeah, that's an awesome shot of the storm. All right, so let's kind of back out. Let's kind of explore New York City for a time frame here. Check out each one of the boroughs, right? We were just checking out Brooklyn. So we can go to Staten Island here and maybe check out that area near Bull's Head and see what's happening there. Again, shouldn't be too different, right? It looks like we have a accumulating snow over Staten Island as well. Again, temperatures are good for this snow, around that 32 degrees. Definitely the 1 to 2 inch per hour snowfall here in Staten Island as well. But again, traffic is moving around pretty well. I see a lot of blinking lights though, so I wonder if this is going to come to a halt eventually. All right, so let's take another look at Staten Island, maybe further off to the south here. So BJ's Wholesale Club. Let's take a look around this area. And man, is it coming down here. This is still very heavy snowfall. And the roads are pretty much snow covered here. And you can see where it's, if you didn't have lights everywhere, and this particular image does, this would basically be whiteout conditions in the southwestern part of Staten Island. New York 440 at Inglewood Avenue. So that's where this image is. How about here at Midland Beach? We have one camera here. Now, this is just a still shot, but yeah, you can see where the snowfall has covered the ground here. The roadways are covered in slush currently at the moment. So, Hillen Boulevard at New Dorp Lane. Hmm. All right, so let's kind of go north of Staten Island for a bit. Go to the Jersey City area. Take us underground, away from the snow. Some of these images look from earlier today, so I don't know. This is a good area to be. How about near Yankee Stadium? Go to Starlight Park. See if it lets me see the video here. So in the Bronx, see if we can kind of find a video here that does work. And once again, the same thing, right? We're seeing heavy snowfall in the Bronx, but traffic is moving along pretty well, right? At a good clip. Okay, this is just to the southwest of Yankee Stadium, I-87 here. I mean, surprisingly, traffic doesn't look terrible here as of this time. So, yeah, it looks like the roadways are in pretty good condition here around 6:30 p.m. But I have to wonder around 8, 9 o'clock that time frame if traffic conditions become really poor in New York City. All right, so we've taken a look at the Bronx, we've taken a look at Staten Island. We're in Brooklyn just a moment ago. How about Queens Village? Let's take a look at this area. And really the same, right? We're seeing along Jamaica Avenue here and Springfield Avenue, we're seeing very heavy snowfall. The roads are completely covered in this area. Let's take a look at Garden City Park as well. This is just down the street. Well, we'll have to go somewhere else. Let's go out towards maybe, how about towards College Point? Let's see if we can find a better video than that. But again, same story, right? Looking at all the boroughs in New York City, we're having heavy snowfall overnight. And of course, you got people still working, still have people out traveling that are used to this, I'm sure. But I'd imagine if you're getting anything done, to get it done now and then get home before the storm really intensifies. Because again, the big issue with this storm is not only the heavy snowfall, right? We'll be experiencing that 1 to 2 inches an hour, but you're going to eventually have blowing and drifting snow. You have to deal with, very poor visibilities, but then also your car being blown all over the road. So just to make things even more difficult when you're traveling out here. Um, but yeah, I would imagine that things are only going to pick up in terms of intensity with the storm. I think temperatures will continue to drop. So whatever chemicals they have on the roads are going to probably become less effective over time. But again, we'll be checking this through about 8 p.m. tonight to give you guys updates. But I'd imagine, yeah, conditions are only going to get worse here on the roads in New York City. All right, so we spent quite a bit of time in the city of New York. Let's kind of expand outward. Let's go towards Medford and Long Island. So we'll take another look at that here. And just to let you guys know, Medford is in the center part of Long Island. And this gives you a good idea of what's happening there. You can see how the roads are snow covered here. And Probably the same rates, right? That 1 to 2 inch an hour rate that's coming down here in the middle part of Long Island. But again, people are typically used to it out here. We can see them still driving on the roadways. Um, I'm sure some people, again, are working even tonight. One thing I want to do, though, is kind of move throughout Long Island here, get a better look at what's happening here. Let's go out towards the Bayshore area. This is New York 27. Now, this is more of a ghost town, right? I can see some people shoveling, especially to the left here in the video. Who knows? Maybe some people have already picked up 4 inches of snowfall here in parts of Long Island, maybe more. But just to stay on top of it, right? They're probably getting an early start here. Maybe make several rounds throughout the night just to stay ahead of the storm. But yeah, we see someone out here shoveling already as of 6:30 tonight here, Sunday. And this is on Route 27A, Bayshore Avenue here in Long Island. All right, I'm actually having fun doing this, going from place to place here. See if I can exit out of this place. All right, so we looked at Bayshore. We looked at this place further to the east here that was in Medford. Let's see how far we can take it to the east here. Let's see how far these cameras go east along Long Island. We see a camera here out towards Southampton. Let's see what's happening here near Tuckahoe. And guess what? No difference. We still have heavy snowfall here, and the roads are, of course, snow covered here in this part of Long Island. I imagine this would be a beautiful area of the state to travel in, but you can see here tonight, no one's really out on the roads. I'm sure this is a lower population area in Long Island, but again, you can see where the roads are pretty much snow covered here and will continue to be throughout the night. All right, up here towards Huntington. Let's take a look at this area. Again, just another area here in Long Island, basically the northwestern side of Long Island. Hmm. Seems like a cool place. All right, so I think we'll leave it at that for looking at Long Island and New York City for now. Let's check out the Albany area, get an idea of what's happening just south of Albany here. Again, this is around exit 22 on Interstate 87, northbound here towards Albany. And not much happening, right? We're seeing that traffic is moving along at a good pace here. And visibility, looks like you have miles of visibility here. So the snow probably has a ways to go before it gets here. But again, we're seeing it throughout New Jersey, southern New York, Connecticut, uh, eastern Pennsylvania, right? Much of eastern Maryland and the eastern shore of Virginia, but not quite as far north as, let's say, the capital district of Albany. So we're not seeing it yet up here. Now, how far south would we have to go, right? Let's kind of travel south along Interstate 87 for a time and see if we can pick up on where the snowfall line is. Good. Maybe a good place to start is in Catskill, that area. So if we have any snowfall here, if we can make it out right on the video. And even when you look off to the right here and you look towards the light on the side of this hill, don't really see anything here, right, falling. And this is much further to the south, right, of Albany, what we're seeing here in Catskill. Now, I do believe once we get down to a place like Kingston, we would start seeing snowfall. So let's take a look at this area. I'd imagine this is far enough south here where we could actually start picking up on some of the snowfall. You can see where the winds are picking up. And this is at exit 19, and I can barely make out that there is some light snowfall coming here or coming down here. It would be very hard for you guys to see it though. But yeah, the winds are really picking up around Kingston, that area here along Interstate 87. And the best place to look at here is to the right, right? Not only because of the light, but also with the flag blowing. Get a good idea of the winds picking up here. And then finally, if we get down towards, let's say, Newburgh, right? The New York Stewart International Airport, that area. Let's take a look at this area for a moment. And this is just above New York City, probably less than 30 minutes away. And yeah, snowfall is coming down here. You can see where the ground is getting white. And this is all fresh, of course, that's coming down. But again, it's just getting started here. And it'll only pick up with intensity with time. All right, guys, we traveled down 87 here from Albany to just north here of New York City in a place like Newburgh. If you travel down the Hudson River here, of course, those snowfall rates are going to pick up. About around Sleepy Hollow. Let's take a look at Sleepy Hollow here for a moment. So this is the Como Bridge. So let's take a look here around the Cuomo Bridge, what's happening. New York 119 at Crescent Drive. Again, this is probably snowfall coming down pretty heavy at the moment in this area. And this is live. Okay, cool. But it looks like, yeah, we've got a couple of inches probably that are new on the ground here. But yeah, this is around the Sleepy Hollow area in New York State. All right, guys, we've gotten a good look at what's been happening here on each of the cameras. And pretty much the mid Atlantic and the Northeast. So, what I'm going to do now is kind of take a break and look at the chat here for a moment, see if we have any new questions or new comments that have come up. And I'm also going to go back to the radar temporarily so you guys can see what's happening on the national radar. So, I'm going to pull that up for you guys now so you can see it. All right, so kind of checking back in now. We're looking at the national radar, and we've zoomed in here on the mid Atlantic around the Delmarva Peninsula. And I hope you guys can make it out, but where you see the darker blues again, those are the heavier bands of snowfall. And this is continuing for the state of Delaware, right? Eastern shore of Maryland, eastern shore of Virginia. Nothing but heavy snowfall moving through this area. Same thing is true for Washington, D.C., right? You guys have had that heavy band of snowfall moving overhead currently. So your best chance for heavy snowfall is probably between now and midnight for Washington, D.C. Several more hours likely for the state of Delaware, eastern shore of Maryland. Baltimore, you guys have got several more hours ahead of heavy snow. And of course, we were seeing it on Philadelphia, right? That one particular webcam we were looking at showed very heavy snowfall moving over the city. And then much of New Jersey, right? It's very obvious here. These successive blue bands moving on shore, delivering heavy, heavy snowfall to the area. And the same thing is true right over Long Island. We were just looking at all the cameras there in Long Island and mentioning how heavy the snowfall was on each one of those cameras. Yeah, it's very intense in this area. And of course, into southern New York State, Connecticut. Looks like New Haven, Bridgeport to New London. It looks like heavy snowfall is finally moving into the area here. And of course, temperatures are going to support it, right? We have temperatures around 31, 32 degrees here already. And they're going to only drop probably as the storm continues in this particular area. Now, as far as locations to the north, right, towards Albany, New York, towards Pittsfield, Massachusetts, even Boston, Massachusetts. Again, we could have several more hours here where the snow has to build back into this area. And what that means is you're going to miss out on a lot of the heavy snowfall, right, until about midnight. But lighter snowfall could pick up in places like Albany to Boston as we approach 8, maybe even 9 p.m. tonight. I think the snowfall will move back into that region. Syracuse, New York, you guys were seeing light snow through the afternoon today, and that's pretty much all died down. And I would be surprised if you get much at all from the system as it propagates to the north and east over time. I think you guys might be done as far as receiving snowfall tonight. But yeah, if you live in eastern Pennsylvania, from Harrisburg to Allentown, you guys are going to see a good deal of snowfall from this. I think as far north as Scranton, I think it's definitely possible for y'all to get accumulating snowfall from this storm. Um, Williamsport, you guys are going to be right on the line probably of getting snowfall um, of significance at least. But I think the next thing we'll do is take a look at the high resolution radar and get an idea where the heaviest bands are actually setting up here. Okay, guys, so we're looking at Washington, D.C. to begin with. And you know how we had mentioned before how the heaviest snow band was over Sterling and Reston, and that would eventually propagate off to the east into the D.C. area. Well, it's starting to do so now. We're starting to see it begin to die down on the western side of Sterling, and we'll likely see that begin to move further east with time. Um, as far as like over Annapolis, Maryland, it looks like the snowfall is picking up for you guys as well over time. Let's see if we can get a better image of what's happening in Annapolis. Yeah, it looks like the heaviest band actually is propagated off to the east of Annapolis. So I think this particular local radar is doing a better job at showing what's actually happening there. But as far as like Dover, Delaware, you guys have probably seen already 3 to 6 inches of snowfall, probably to the west of town. I think to the west of town, they've seen the most so far. But you still probably have a couple of hours of very, very heavy snowfall. You can see that heavier band moving back into the region. And same thing is true for the rest of Delaware here. You go towards the southern shore of Delaware. You can see where we have this yellow band over Bethany Beach. And that area in particular was getting very heavy snowfall, even as early as around 2, 3 p.m. this afternoon. So, where we do have those heavier bands, of course, you're going to see the accumulations of 2 inches an hour, perhaps even more in some cases. Another location we're looking at before was over Tom's River to Trenton, New Jersey to Philadelphia. That area was seeing very heavy snowfall, right? By just looking at the webcams alone, we could tell there was nearly whiteout conditions in this area. And sure enough, that's what we're seeing here in Philadelphia on the radar. Let's kind of take it to the current time to take a look at it here. So this is around 7 p.m. now. We can see where the darker greens are now over the city of Philadelphia, north and east into Trenton, New Jersey, and even east of that into places like Tom's River, to Long Branch, and even northward into Edison. And of course, extending that further northward into New York City. We've got a heavy band here all along I 95. So I'd imagine anywhere from Wilmington here in Delaware, north and eastward into New York City, that's going to be a tough drive the next few hours. And probably the rest of tonight, right? Based on what we were seeing with the weather models. But you can make out here on the radar the yellows, right? The higher reflectivity here. And that's probably indicative of very, very heavy snowfall. I don't know about the artifacting on this radar in the sense of maybe there's some glitches in the image here that are being created that I don't know about. But I'd imagine some of the areas here, at least in the darker green, right, are picking up 2 inches an hour snowfall rates. And guys, we spent a lot of time along Long Island, New York City. So if you want to take a look back at that just from a historical perspective, uh, after this video is posted later tonight, might be fun for you to do. But we were looking at the boroughs of New York City, We're looking at different cameras there in Long Island and looking at the heavy snowfall really throughout this region. And it was impressive, right? We're starting to see the snowfall really pick up in intensity and begin to accumulate on the roadways throughout New York City and Long Island. Now, we can see if we look offshore, we still have more heavy snowfall that's about to move on shore. So, this is not going to end anytime soon for you guys. This will likely continue through midnight and probably through early tomorrow morning in some locations here. All right, so moving up to the Boston area, nothing yet, right? Providence, nothing yet. We kind of left you guys off of the webcams entirely because we're like, most likely through 8 p.m., nothing will be falling in this area. But just you wait. You've got a very heavy band offshore here that will propagate to the north over time. And all signs are that this will probably have a big push around 9, 10 p.m. tonight. So I'd imagine Providence to Boston, you guys are going to get very heavy snowfall very quickly once it does begin. But in Connecticut, if you're along the shoreline here from New London to New Haven, it looks like, yeah, you have heavy snowfall westward into Bridgeport, Stamford. That entire area along the coast is receiving heavy snowfall currently. Now, what about northward here into upstate New York? Nothing really yet. We've got mainly light snow, probably over Spriting, Newburgh, northward into Kingston. But you have to go southward towards Yonkers really to pick up on the heavier snowfall. Yeah, even switching radars here, you can kind of make that out that, yeah, the heavier snowfall is really confined to New York City, Long Island, up to Yonkers. Uh, I think Yonkers is a part of New York State. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it is a part of New York State. But yeah, Stamford, Connecticut to New Haven. Yeah, there are a lot of areas, high population areas that are receiving heavy snowfall tonight, but this will eventually move to the north, and we will see some building back in of snowfall in places like Albany as we move overnight, right? Towards maybe the 1 to 2 a.m. time frame. But yeah, before even the heavy snowfall arrives for, say, parts of upstate New York, parts of Massachusetts, you will get on the lighter snowfall at least, I would say by 9, 10 p.m. tonight, just to keep that in mind. All right, guys, let's kind of move back to the models for a moment. So what we're going to try to do is bring up the high resolution model for a moment here and take a look at the latest one. So keep in mind, this is additional snowfall. So what you're seeing in Delaware is probably far less than what you'll actually end up with. It's showing pink here, basically in the 6 to 7 inch range here between now and the end of the storm. But that's on top of the heavy snowfall you've already received. And then you can see that pink region through eastern Pennsylvania, through southern New York, parts of Massachusetts here. Um, but one thing it's showing here is that, and if this is correct, is that the heaviest snowfall is going to be confined more to the shoreline with this latest model run. So what that means is that lighter amounts of snowfall probably would occur in places like Boston, places like Albany. Now, it's not to say you guys will not get snowfall, but it's showing lighter amounts here in general. And that might be due to the fact that the low pressure could be hanging a little bit further to the south. So, what you were seeing from the National Weather Service earlier today with the forecast, I think they were showing what, 4 to 7 inches in the Albany area, could be a little bit lower. And we're not talking about much lower. We're talking about maybe an inch or two lower than what we're seeing previously. But it just shows that the heavier snow bands are going to be more confined to the shoreline. And that means that, places like New York City will continue to see the potential for over a foot of snowfall. I don't think much is going to change for you guys. And the same thing is true for much of New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and the southern part of Massachusetts. I think you guys in this entire green region are going to be game for at least a foot of snowfall, without a doubt. And I think we will still see some areas that pick up upwards of 2 feet of snowfall when this storm really cranks up. And it's going to crank up towards midnight, where those pressure millibar ratings will probably drop down to 980 or 975 at that point. So dropping nearly 24 millibars in 24 hours will be possible with the storm. And you've probably heard bombogenesis, bomb cyclone, the last couple of days right in the Northeast. And that just means that this storm is really cranking up, right, within a 12-hour time frame for the most part here. But yeah, I think the storm is going to still be as strong as what was predicted. I think for those that are closest to it, they're going to get the highest winds and the heaviest amounts of snow. Um, but it could be more limited to places to the south. So southern New York versus, let's say, the middle part of New York, right? Picking up on the snowfall here. And yeah, not too much of a change here. Again, the heaviest amounts were forecast to fall here along the shoreline, along the I 95 corridor. But yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Let's take a look at the 3 kilometer run of the NAM. And if we were to compare this to previous runs, we can kind of see if there's a trend here. Yeah, if we go back far enough, we can see where the snowfall amounts were forecast to be much further to the north here. And you can kind of see how it's been cut back to the south. But that doesn't mean that locations around Albany still won't pick up 6 inches of snow. It could still happen, especially if we have through tomorrow afternoon, which is forecast to happen, right, in parts of upstate New York. But yeah, I think in general we're getting a good idea of where the heaviest snowfall is going to be. It's going to be somewhere between New Jersey, southern New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and I believe through Nantucket, you guys are going to pick up some really heavy snowfall. And as far as the American model and the European model, that's pretty much right on track with what we were seeing a day or two ago. I think the American model was shifting things further to the south as of this afternoon. So it was showing more snowfall, again, staying to the south towards New York City, Long Island, that area, hugging the coast near Hartford, Connecticut, Providence, Rhode Island, but not as much snowfall for a place like Boston, right? Uh, so that would be a big change for them because they were seeing the potential for well over a foot of snowfall, right? As of yesterday, at least with these model runs. So we'll see how this plays out. Um, It's not that the system has weakened, because that is not the case. Again, it has to do with the track of the storm itself. So yeah, this is the NAM model here, just to give you an idea. You can see where the heaviest snowfall in pink hits the shoreline of Connecticut here, New York State, New Jersey. And there's even moderate snowfall that gets into upstate New York here, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and parts of Maine. And that continues through tomorrow afternoon, right? And you can see how that even continues, maybe even to tomorrow night in parts of Maine. But if we were to go back to the high resolution model and take a look at the latest run and kind of look at the northern extent of this, well, this is the latest run here as of about 23Z. So that would be as of about our 6 p.m. run here. And yeah, this is not giving us the full extent of the storm here, but this is showing through about 10 p.m. tonight. And you can see how it's forecasting the snowfall to reach southern portions of Massachusetts by 10 p.m. tonight, moving back into the Albany area around 10 p.m. as well. Places like Scranton, Pennsylvania will continue to get snowfall. Washington, D.C., probably a band of snowfall there between you guys and Sterling, Virginia, still set up. So, again, some areas in there in Northern Virginia will be picking up 1 to 2 inches an hour. It's hard to tell, but I think somewhere between Sterling and Washington, D.C., you guys will be picking up on heavy snowfall. And again, it looks like at least moderate to heavy snowfall for places like Baltimore. Um, and unfortunately, this particular model run, this is the latest, by the way, of the high resolution model runs. And it only goes out to about 10 p.m. so far. But this will continue to update, and we'll get several more hours here um, that shows up in this particular run. And we'll check it out here before the 8 o'clock time frame. Guys, I think we have enough time to go back through the webcams again for each state and kind of explore and see what's happening. Again, we'll go back to maybe the eastern shore of Virginia and take a look at that. Also Northern Virginia, and then points north and east, right? We'll go back through Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. We'll go back through all these areas one more time, go back through Connecticut, even, maybe even Massachusetts. We might take a look at some areas there if we see the snowfall begin to move back into that region. But generally speaking, it looks like it's not going to be till the 9, 10 o'clock time frame for you guys to get in on the action. All right, so we're going to do an update here. We have this Afton Mountain cam, and we cannot see a thing. But they did get about 3 to 6 inches of snowfall here. This is a mountain pass on Interstate 64, going west of Richmond, west of Charlottesville, going towards Stanton, Virginia. This would have been one of the rougher areas to travel in the state early this afternoon. Let's see if we can exit out of this and take a look at maybe somewhere along the eastern shore instead. Let's see if we move out towards maybe just east of Richmond and get an idea here of what's happening. And guys, it's going to take us a moment here. We're going to try to find something good. How about out towards Williamsburg? We got some red on the map here indicating poor travel conditions, slow traffic at least. All these are offline currently. These are along Interstate 64, by the way. So Interstate 64 around Williamsburg is pretty difficult at the moment. All right, so yeah, around Williamsburg, Virginia, very historical place here. We've got very slow traffic, it looks like, on the roadways. Again, heavy, heavy snowfall over this area east of Richmond. So I can imagine if you're on Interstate 64, um, going from Williamsburg to Richmond and vice versa, it's going to be very difficult travel. This is one of the hardest hit areas of the state with the storm, going from heavy rainfall to now heavy snowfall. Now, I would not be surprised if this area here picks up 4 to 5 inches of snow. And we're talking about heavy, heavy, wet snow in this area. But this gives us a general idea of traffic conditions here in the eastern part of Virginia. And of course, over Richmond itself, we were seeing much the same thing. Um, it looks a bit lighter, though. If we look at this here, this is pretty much the center of town here in Richmond, and we can see where traffic is moving at a good clip versus what we were seeing in Williamsburg. So, lighter snowfall. We can make out here to the bottom left-hand side here that there is some snow that's accumulated on the grassy surfaces. But over the roads themselves, it looks like it's pretty clear travel. So, not bad conditions currently within the city of Richmond. Now, a place that's being hard hit currently is up near George Mason um, in Northern Virginia here. We can kind of make out that road conditions are pretty poor here. And what's harder to see, though, in this particular image is the rate of snowfall. And in fact, let's see if we can kind of back out here for a moment, kind of reset this. This is just another shot here around the university here in Northern Virginia. We can see, oh, this is a little bit better. If you look at the very bottom here of the image, you can make out the snowfall coming down. Um, but yeah, you can see where, yeah, there's a good bit of slush on the roadways here. And that would affect travel, right, overnight. And it looks like, yeah, here in Northern Virginia, you're going to probably have moderate to heavy snowfall through midnight at least, right, with the storm. So it will continue to pile up overnight. But yeah, we got some brave souls out there tonight traveling. Okay, guys, we're going to go back to our Maryland cams now. Got a decent idea of what's happening in Virginia. We're looking at the eastern shore, um, on up towards DC, right? And we're seeing that heavy snowfall throughout that area. Not so much in Richmond itself. I think we were seeing on the radar earlier that the heavier band was kind of propagating to the east there. Let's go to Hagerstown for a moment. Around the Beaver Creek area, which is to the east, and they're likely seeing more heavy snowfall there by comparison. Um, what's hard here to make out is the rate of snowfall coming down, but this is I-70 at exit 35 here in Maryland. And if you look off to the top of this screen and you look towards the actual lights, you can see where snowfall is still coming down currently at this time. You can also make out here at this part of Maryland's received some snowfall, right? Probably several inches from the storm. And this again is east of Hagerstown. Hagerstown itself did not pick up a whole lot of snow from the system. All right, so what about our friends to the east here? Let's go out towards Bethesda and see what's going on there. All right, so here in Bethesda, I wish this image quality was a bit better, but if you look at our plow truck here, our plow truck here, to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can make out the snowfall in front of the truck here. I'd imagine it's coming down at a moderate rate here, and we can see where the roads are in pretty good condition, and we can see the traffic is still moving about um, at a pretty good clip here. But yeah, snowfall is coming down at a good rate here currently in Bethesda. And this is just to give you some context to the north and west of Washington, D.C. There's different frames that kind of remind me of a snow globe. But yeah, so we'll back out of this. Yeah, we've taken a look at Hagerstown, Bethesda. Now we want to kind of zoom in on Baltimore for a moment, see what's happening there. Okay, so now we have Interstate 695 at Old Court Road. And one thing that's different from earlier is I can see here just off the roadway where we do have accumulating snow. And the snowfall is really starting to come down at a higher rate. But yeah, I'd imagine in the grassy areas, we've probably got an inch or two on the ground here near Baltimore. Again, we got to keep in mind that these roadways are warmer from earlier today, right? We saw temperatures in the upper 30s earlier today. Heavy rain that still made the roadways wet, and the snowfall's having to overcome that, right? Overcome the chemicals on the roadway, but then also any rainwater, right, that's on the roadway. So that's going to take some time to accumulate in these areas. But I can make out that snowfall is accumulating to the sides of the roads, at least in the Baltimore area. All right, so now we're going to go to our friends in Delaware. And I want to go back to Dewey Beach, that area first to begin with. And man, oh man, this is a good one. It's probably been my favorite stop for the storm here. It looks like a very beautiful location here, Dewey Beach. And on top of it, we can see the brunt of the storm. We can see the winds, we can see the heavy snow. You probably got at least 5 inches of snow on the ground here in this location. And yeah, it's going to really start blowing around between now and midnight. You're going to see those wind speeds begin to pick up even more. But yeah, what a cool location. If I was like a local weatherman, I guess in the Delaware area, I would love to go to this spot and kind of report on the storm. This would be a cool location to check out. Let's try this again. It only gives you like a few minutes and then it makes you back out. Cool stuff, though. You can make out the snowfall pretty easily. Everything's well lit in this area. But yeah, no one out on the streets. I'm not seeing any cars. I'm not seeing any people walking. Um, Again, I think conditions are bad enough here where people are like, okay, I'm going in for the night. But yeah, it's this is a cool place to check out. Hey guys, we're gonna go back to Delaware now. Take a look at Delaware for a moment. What I meant to say was Dover. So the capital here of Delaware. And yeah, the winds are picking up here even. And you can see where the snowfall is coming down at a really good clip. Probably have several inches already accumulated here in Dover. But yeah, look at that image. It's really coming down heavy. You can see those big wet snowflakes. One thing that's going to be a major concern tonight and going into tomorrow morning is going to likely be power outages from the heavy wet snowfall accumulating on the power lines, on the trees, and then on top of it, the winds blowing those trees, right? So I could imagine, yeah, places along the eastern shore of Jersey, uh, Rhode Island. southern New York, right? Long Island, that area. And Delaware, like we're seeing currently, we can probably have some power outages, right? So that would be something that is going to impact a lot of people, I would say between tonight and tomorrow morning across New England. Sometimes I find an image I want to just stay on. But yeah, I'll continue here. So yeah, we're looking at Dewey Beach. We're looking at Dover, Delaware. We're also going to go to the north here to Wilmington. Take a look at that here for a moment. So Wilmington might be our highest population area in the state of Delaware. Let's kind of zoom in a little bit more here. But yeah, it's same thing, right? We're seeing very heavy snowfall. You're in the inner part of the city here, you know, so it's overcome any, I guess, daytime heating that we've had here. Any rainfall that's accumulated on the roadways and ponding of water, it's overcome all of that. And it just goes to show how heavy the snowfall is coming down in Wilmington, Delaware. So, again, we were seeing on the radar just a moment ago. It might be more like 30 minutes ago now. I can't remember, but we were seeing this very heavy band of snowfall extending from Wilmington, Delaware, through New York City, right, up through much of New Jersey, and then extending eastward into Connecticut, right? And that large band of heavy snowfall, of course, is over Wilmington at the moment. Here we go. I just wanted to restart it for you guys again so you can get another look here. Yeah, I would love to go for like a walk in this. Let's go for a stroll. This would be really pretty. But you can kind of make out the emergency vehicles here too. I'm not sure what for here. So 10th Street at King Street City of Wilmington. That's what we're looking at currently. All right, so we keep losing coverage after about a minute of video, so I'm going to back out of this here. I guess this is a good idea of what's happening currently in Delaware. All right, so we had some success earlier with New Jersey. We're going to go back now to the Cape area of New Jersey. Again, along these coast areas, this is where we're seeing the heavy snowfall. And it's kind of been ironic this season in the sense that if you go down to North Carolina, right, with the storm system we saw, I believe back on the 31st, those areas saw the heaviest amount of snowfall. And places that hadn't seen it in 40 to 60 years, picking up their largest snow, um, and yeah, decades, right, across eastern North Carolina. Well, even with this storm, we're seeing the heaviest snowfall along the coast. And that's going to be the case, it looks like, right, according to the latest model runs. Whether we're looking at the GFS or looking at the high resolution models, they've kind of trended back towards the coast even more. And so that means places like we're looking at now along the Cape, right, the southern shore of New Jersey, these areas are going to be picking up heavy, heavy snowfall. So, yeah, this is an animated image here that we have along Interstate 295. I guess the junction of 195. But you can make out here the heavy snowfall. And let's kind of explore a little bit. This is a great image in that it shows really good lighting, right, for everyone to make out what's going on. Let's kind of move a little bit further to the south here. Let's actually move down to the Cape here. It looks like that image really wasn't along the Cape. Oh, wow. Yeah. New Jersey 109. This is the Cape area. And yeah, we can make out this is heavy, heavy snowfall. The roads are completely covered. Minimal traffic, right, in this area. But I'd imagine, you guys, that we have between 4 and 6 inches on the ground here already, maybe more. It looks like this might be one of the areas that's received the most so far. But yeah, I was just remarking how this is a coastal storm, and then back on the 31st, we covered the storm in Carolina and how that was a coastal storm and how the heaviest snowfall occurred along the eastern shore of North Carolina. Well, this is kind of what's happening again here. We're getting the heaviest bands along the coast. I'm going to take a look at the rest here of the Cape and see if we can find some other good images here of what's happening. So this is the Rio Grande, so just to the north here of the Cape. Again, I wish we could kind of zoom in on these images a bit better than what we're doing. That looks like absolutely whiteout conditions, right? That's New Jersey 147 here, mile marker 1.60. And that's along this wetland region here, just east of Rio Grande. Yeah, so all around the Cape region, of course, heavy snowfall. No difference really here, right? Compared to the rest of New Jersey. How about Ocean City? We don't really have cameras out near Atlantic City, unfortunately. But this is Summers Point. We can find a better traffic cam here. You can see how the streets are covered here. Can't fully make it out just because my screen is rather small here, but looks like this is around the toll booth area, perhaps. But yeah, this is mile marker 30, south of exit 30, entering the Parkway region. Again, moderate to heavy snowfall there in Summers Point. Okay, so what about near Trenton? Let's take a look at that area. Hmm. So we're seeing a common trend here on the webcams. A lot of these are snow and ice covered, right? So we're having to find a good one. It's going to zoom out here. For some reason, this one was showing the Cape. Hmm. Let's check out a new area. Let's go around Long Branch in New Jersey. See what we have here on the webcam. Unfortunately, yeah, snow and ice covered. But yeah, out towards Trenton here. We'll just kind of go back to this area. So we can find a good one for you guys. Here we go. Let's gives us a good idea what's going on. But again, it's like moderate to heavy snowfall here, New Jersey 29, South Warren Street. And just trust me if you can't make it out. The snowfall is coming down at a moderate clip here to heavy rate. And we still see people out driving. I see people out walking. Um, Definitely several inches of snow has fallen here in the Trenton area. It's a location further to the north here, but yeah, all across the state of New Jersey. This is Interstate 295, north south of exit 75. Just to kind of go back to the Newark area, New Jersey 129 here. This is actually a really good camera. This shows you the whiteout conditions basically that you have there. Again, that heavier band of snowfall, right, was moving into the Newark area. And of course, that was extending back into New York City, Long Island, that area. But yeah, very heavy amounts of snowfall here. It looks like traffic has begun to really slow down in this area. Fewer people out on the road, right? Compared to what we were seeing maybe an hour ago. Okay, so we're moving back to Connecticut. And just to give you a heads up, Connecticut just has those still images. I'm going to begin in Hartford here and kind of zoom in a little bit more here on Hartford. But you can make out there is new snowfall on the roads here. Um, Not so much here, actually. Whitehead Highway, Interstate 91. Let's kind of zoom out of here. Let's go to a different location in Hartford, get a different idea, a different look. But in general, you can kind of see that the snowfall rates have picked up here in Hartford compared to what we were seeing even an hour ago. And this is kind of aligning with that heavy band moving on shore. Now, this is nice. Got plenty of really good lighting here along this roadway. This is 118 East, Hartford Route 2, eastbound without exit 5A, Insight Street. Okay, let's kind of zoom in a little bit more here. But again, you can't see the snowfall actually coming down. We just kind of got to look at the blurry image and decipher that this is a moderate snowfall that's coming down. Again, associated with that snow band that we're seeing offshore, that's now moved onshore into places like Hartford. Um, and again, our neighbors to the south, right, of Hartford, as you get into New Haven, are seeing the heavier snowfall at this time. So we should be able to see that, right, when we go to the cameras after this. So let's kind of zoom out of Hartford here and go to New Haven currently and get an update in New Haven. And you can make out here from the image that one, it's blurry, but two, you can see that there is snowfall coming down. And this is far heavier than what we were seeing before. And again, compared to an hour ago, we didn't have that heavy band moving on shore yet. Now it's moved on shore, and we're seeing these heavy 1 to 2 inch an hour rates of snow that are coming down. And we're going to see that probably for several hours in southern Connecticut. Okay, so this is as you move eastward into almost Rhode Island. We're almost there when you move into New London. But this is along the Interstate 95, um, exit 86 corridor um, in the New London area here of eastern Connecticut. And we can see that snowfall is coming down. Again, these are still images, so just kind of bear with it. But Again, probably light to moderate snowfall coming down now in eastern Connecticut. So now we'll go to Pennsylvania, get an idea of what's happening basically from the center of the state in Harrisburg and kind of track to the east, right, towards Scranton and then finally Philadelphia. So we'll take a look at Harrisburg first, kind of interact with that image. See if it's still snowing there in Harrisburg. And in fact, it is. It looks like, if anything, the snowfall rates have picked up in Harrisburg. And I can make out the snowfall on the sidewalks, not so much in the parking area or the roadways. It looks like the roadways are pretty, it looks like the roadways are in pretty good condition at the moment in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But what about to the east in Philadelphia? So we'll take a look at Philadelphia now and get a general idea of what's happening there. And once again, very heavy snowfall an hour later, right, in Philadelphia. And it looks like not only the grassy areas, but the parking lots are completely covered, right, in snow. And one of the things, again, we were talking about before was that Philadelphia was in the upper 30s this afternoon. So temperatures have now fallen to the freezing mark. Uh, and the snowfall rates have now picked up, right, 1 to 2 inches an hour. And for that reason, we're going to start to see the roads become slushy, right, probably over the next hour or so in the city of Philadelphia. So I'd imagine road conditions will only become more poor with time, um, especially as we move towards midnight. I don't think the heavy snowfall is going to come to an end or lighten up really before midnight. So we're going to have several hours of this in the city of Philadelphia and much of eastern Pennsylvania for that matter. I was saying in the chat earlier, if anyone knows the name of that stadium, um, just to the right here, this is in Philadelphia here. If anybody knows that street and where we are looking here along this traffic cam, feel free to write in the chat the name of that stadium. Is it the football stadium? Is it the baseball stadium? What stadium is that off to the right? Okay, so our next stop is going to be in Scranton. And take a look at what's happening there. The last hour and a half to 2 hours that we've been looking in Scranton, and there's been nothing really falling. And it's going to be hard to make out here if we're actually getting any light snow at this point. Maybe if this image brightens a little bit, we'll be able to make out something. But I'd imagine, if anything, we're probably getting a little bit of light snow in Scranton. You kind of make out that the hills in the distance are kind of faded a little bit, but nothing really substantial yet is falling in the Scranton area. I think earlier today there was a bit of light snow extending northward from Scranton into portions of upstate New York. And that's come to an end, right? We haven't seen snow for the last several hours in this area. But again, you guys will get back in on the action probably around 9 p.m. or so as we move throughout the night. Again, this is along Interstate 81, the intersection of Route 6 Business, mile marker 191. Okay, so we've checked out Pennsylvania. Our last stop is going to be here in New York State. I'm going to check out New York City uh, to Long Island, into portions of upstate New York as well. So that'll be our last stop tonight, guys. Might take a quick look at the radar one more time, but thank you guys for showing up. Anybody that was here for our stream from 5 to 8 p.m. I'm going to post it later too for others to watch it, and just from a historical perspective. And yeah, if you want to leave any comments to the video after the fact, feel free to do so, and I'll try to answer those questions over the next couple of days. So, guys, let's go back to New York City for a moment and take a look at some of the areas here in New York City. We were looking at the different boroughs before, and pretty much all of them were showing heavy snowfall with that very heavy band moving on shore. And you can kind of make out here that the roadways are still decent condition. They're not completely covered. I think the road crews have done an excellent job. You can kind of see one truck moving off to the left here um, through snow that's completely covering the roads, right? But the road off to the right, pretty good condition, right? We can still see traffic moving at a good clip there as of about 7:50 p.m. tonight. Now I want to do maybe another stop here in New York City. This is Interstate 678, by the way, that we were looking at. Let's take a look here in West Brooklyn. I think we were looking at a really good image before. I want to see if I can find it again. Here we go. I actually love this image. So this is the western part of Brooklyn. You can see how traffic has really come to a halt here in the right lane. You can see how traffic's really slowed down. But I'd imagine this part of New York City have seen 6 inches of snowfall at this point. And yeah, it's really coming down. It's covering all the trees. And I just want to kind of restate maybe what is obvious to everyone is that the wet snow really sticks to the trees. And if we're getting half a foot to a foot of wet snow sticking to the trees, and then we have high winds move in after the fact, we could have a lot of power outages moving into Monday morning. And I think that's definitely a possibility all along the eastern shore of New England. Again, where we have those highest winds, blizzard conditions, right, in some cases. But yeah, what a beautiful shot, like this area. Let's see if we can find one more location here in New York City before we go. So that was in West Brooklyn. We went out to Staten Island before. Take a look here. So New York 440 at Victory Boulevard in Staten Island. You can see where we have very heavy snowfall. And this is a well-lit area of Staten Island, we can see. But traffic moving pretty slowly, right, at this time. Again, you guys have probably seen 1 to 2 inches an hour for the last 3 hours in this part of New York City. But yeah, you can make out, if you look to the right part of the screen here, you can see the big wet snowflakes coming down here. I'm not done yet. Let's go to another location here in New York City. So I'm enjoying this. I was gonna say I'm enjoying it a bit too much, but let's take a look here. How about New Rochelle? Take a look at that area. It's not gonna let me. How about yeah, take a look at the West Bronx here. Find a good video of the West Bronx. That's not the best. Let's see if we can find a better one. I want to find one that kind of does it justice what's happening here. A lot of these are snow and ice covered. And then, of course, we run into some still images every now and again. Here we go. This is a good one. But yeah, this is in the Bronx. It's hard to make out the snowfall here on the image, but we can see where it's accumulating on the sides of the roads. But the roads themselves are in pretty good condition still in this part of the Bronx. All right, so New York City is receiving heavy snowfall. And we kind of figured that, right? Looking at the radar before and looking at the high resolution radar, right? We could see that heavy band moving on shore the last hour. So, what I want to do now is move out to Long Island. This is a pretty cool location here. New York 110, New York 25A. This is in Medford, Long Island. Yeah, snowfall coming down at a good clip here. Same thing, right, as what we're seeing in New York City. Road conditions are much poorer, though, right? Not only is the temperature's cooler, but I think also there's probably less chemicals on the roadway. Um, and of course, if you have a ton of traffic, that kind of keeps things clear too on the roadways. And we don't have any of that here in this part of Long Island. All right, so our last stop is going to be in upstate New York. So I think what we were seeing before was near Sleepy Hollow, right? There was a good amount of snowfall coming down in this area. The Cuomo Bridge. See if it will actually show us here. Yeah, the Cuomo Bridge is completely covered in snow. This is Interstate 87. I actually like the purple. I like seeing that lit up. It's kind of cool. So yeah, near Sleepy Hollow, very heavy snowfall there. Let's get an idea of what's happening a little bit further to the north. So we weren't really seeing much snowfall up towards Newburgh before. If anything, was very light. See if that's still the case here. I mean, it has picked up in intensity. It's more of a moderate rate that's coming down currently. But again, it's kind of hard to make out on this particular image, but at least we have light in the background. Yeah, that gives you a general idea. I think the last stop will be in the southern part of uh, Albany. So we'll take a quick look at that. Kind of roll up here a little bit further to the north. Maybe even Kingston. We'll take a quick look at Kingston here. Yeah, you can see in Kingston where if we have any snowfall coming down, it's very light currently. But you can see where the winds have picked up, right? We were looking at this same webcam earlier today, and we were looking at the flag as well. But yeah, not much in the way of snowfall yet in this particular area. And you know what that means? That means locations to the north, such as Albany, are not getting it. Catskill, not yet, but this whole area will likely fill back in over the next couple of hours. And maybe the best place to end this is probably walking my dogs. But I think before that, even, I'm going to take one last look at the radar. And let's see if we can kind of get the latest image here for you guys. And one last final word here about the storm. So yeah, we have heavy snowfall over Washington, D.C., over the eastern shore of Virginia. So that extends eastward into Delaware, right? The Delmarva Peninsula. And much of the eastern shore of Maryland, right? You guys are picking up heavy snowfall, and that will continue for several more hours, at least through the midnight time frame. But then we'll see it start to die down, right? That doesn't mean that places such as Philadelphia, Allentown, Pennsylvania are not picking up more snowfall because you guys will continue to pick up the heavy snow. Much of New Jersey, right? Long Island, New York City will continue to pick up the heavy snow. Connecticut, right into Rhode Island, and eventually places to the north, right into Massachusetts. We'll start to see this band of snow creep further to the north, right? And we can see here on the map that places such as Scranton, um, up to Kingston, right? And even into Northampton, Massachusetts, are starting to see the snowfall fill back in, right, on the map. And that means that locations further to the north into Pittsville, Massachusetts, and eventually Albany will pick up on the snow. And you guys in Boston, I don't fully trust the models. You guys could easily pick up a foot of snowfall, even more, right, up to 18 inches. I think that's definitely possible. So even though there has been a trend to the south with the latest runs of the models, I would still not fully trust it yet. You could still see a lot of snow from this event. But yeah, it looks like if you live in New York City, this is your storm. Um, I think down through much of New Jersey, Delaware, yeah, you're going to have blizzard conditions overnight. And this will be your heaviest snow of the season. And it might be the heaviest in several years for you guys. It's something I'll have to look back at and maybe talk about in a later video. But I hope you enjoyed today's live stream. I've enjoyed it, kind of just looking at the radar and how things have changed over time, looking at the different webcams and get an idea of what's happening in different parts of the Mid Atlantic and the Northeast. Um, and I hope to do more of these coming up. So if we have another nor'easter somehow before the end of this winter, you bet I'm going to be on here and we'll talk about it and maybe spend time together talking about these different locations and the potential for heavy snow. Um, but one thing I want to say too, before I let you go, is that this storm is bringing in a lot of cold air behind it, and more so than what was forecast a week ago, because this is now a bigger storm than what was expected a week ago. So, locations in the Northeast, if you live in Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, through much of New York State, Connecticut, you guys will be cold enough to keep the snow on the ground at least for another day. I think beyond that point, though, warmer air is moving back into the area. And we'll have what is called ridging moving back into the area. And we'll begin to melt a lot of the snow that's falling tonight and Monday morning. But, guys, we'll leave it at that for now. Again, thanks for watching the live stream. I'm going to post this later on YouTube for anybody that wants to rewatch it and maybe click around and see things that you enjoyed in the video. But bye for now.